Hello, everyone. I will give you a couple of moments to connect. We are live on Facebook and YouTube. Just in case you wouldn't be able to catch us live, you can join us later. Leave your questions in the comment section below, and me and Nata will get back to you. Okay, I think we can start. The statistics of the past few decades confirm that art world is not one gender variety. Works by female artists comprise a small share of major permanent collections in the US and Europe, while at auctions, women artworks sell for a significant discount compared with men's. To help us find out what is the reason of that, I've invited Nata Andreev as in her art postcard. Oh my god, I'm getting nervous. As a her art podcast curator, she's often talking about the topics that are still considered controversial in our country. But is it controversial or is it just honesty that people are not used to? So Nata, I'm thanking you once again for finding time for us
No
and
problem.
to present your point of view. As I said, sometimes it can be controversial. So let's start with this. Is it controversial? Why people still feel uncomfortable talking about gender equality, women empowerment? Why is
Mhm.
this topic so complicated for us?
I think it's complicated because people are very much overwhelmed with a lot of things that are happening in their lives, and actually understand the root of the problem and how it's the modern days, the days that we live in. You need to do a little bit of research. You need to have the dedication for it, because it's a lot of things, and I'm still amazed every single time there is an article that comes out, with a studying done by this university or that university. There are a lot of studies, there are a lot of movies that are coming up, a lot of information. And I can tell you that from my experience with podcasting and talking about women artists, I can see that the interest in everything that women artists or the art world, that women are involved, and the other disadvantaged groups keeps increasing. And I think that's an amazing phenomena. And let's just hope that the increase will stay active, and people will want to know, people will want to go to exhibits of women artists.
And before we will go to your presentation,
Hmm.
I wanted to ask you if sometimes when people are going through changes, they feel
Hmm.
uncomfortable. So I'm sure that you probably received some messages or
For
comments
sure.
about your honesty making them uncomfortable. Is it an okay thing? Because for me, if something makes me uncomfortable, it is a good thing because I'm realizing that something was wrong. Maybe I
Hmm.
cannot point my finger at what's wrong, but at least I'm feeling that something is not connected with the reality.
I think the most controversial things that I posted on my social media related to the Her Art podcast were actually the abuses, and I'm going to mention a few of them in my presentation. The great artists that everybody knows, and people know their names, and people know their artworks, that were in fact abusers, were in fact not such nice people, let's put it this way. And I feel like people think that I am attacking the I am attacking art history, and I'm calling for some of these big names cancellation, which is not true. And I don't think this is the goal of anyone that speaks of what kind of toxic people this artists were. The main goal is to just make you aware as an art consumer that there is this dark side of the art. And you personally can decide, do you want to go to that show? Do you want to go to that exhibition? Or you would prefer to direct you're attending, that makes sense. So nobody says cancel this and cancel that. Everybody says, are you aware of these things? Are you aware of this aspects? Because we tend to just glamorize everything, and all artists are great, and give them this platform and put them on a pedestal like superhumans, and none of us are superhumans, and they had their flaws as well, and it's just bringing information and awareness to what they've done.
So let's do the exact thing. Let's bring awareness through your presentation.
Yes.
Let me share the screen.
All right.
Okay. Okay. The
All
floor
right.
is yours.
Thank you, Sasha. So, the question that I want to start this presentation with, and it's actually the name of a very famous essay in art history, and I encourage those people that want to dig up more information to look up for this essay with this exact question as a name, and I think they will find out a lot of interesting facts. So, why have there been no great women artists? And I hope we will be able to not fully answer because it's time limiting live session, but at least to start the conversation. And we will actually try to focus, or I will try to focus in my presentation and in my speech today on three main reasons of why there were no great women artists. Obviously there are a lot more reasons, but we will focus on three. First of all, we'll start with institutional sexism and racism. Then we will talk about the phenomena of a lot of artworks created by women being attributed to men through the course of life. And we will also talk at the end about the phenomena known as just a muse, in which a lot of women creators were viewed by art history as muses of some men artists, or always their life and their creation are overshadowed by the big male personality. And art historians chose to focus on them rather than what they created. Or maybe put it this way, they would want to focus more on their personal life rather than on their professional achievements. All right. So, number one is institutional sexism and racism. And I will focus here on the most obvious art institution of them all, which are museums. Museums of any kinds. You take history, you take art, you take, I don't know, biology, paleontology, and all kind of museums. Just museums as institution. And I think it's important for us to know that museums historically were a place, obviously, from the beginning, considered a public places, but not open for everybody. They were places that only rich and famous and from noble families would have access to museums. But what museum did from the very beginning until now, they established what is art and what it isn't. A lot of people, this is how they interpret what art is. If it's in museum, on a wall, in a frame, on a pedestal, that means this is art. If it's outside, if it's a mural, if it's done by some college kids, that means that's not art. So that's why the culture of museums and the toxic culture that still a lot of museums persist around the world, it is plays a key role why we don't see a lot of women in museums or a lot of exhibits there. And it's a lot of institutions around the world, because I said at the beginning there is a huge wave of people being more interested and more curious to see art created by women. A lot of museums started to purchase in their permanent collections art created by women, but it's just not enough. It's done in a very, very slow steps, like, the baby steps. These are not even baby steps, these are baby step of baby steps. And the activists in the art community, when they are calling out museums for their slow, process of change, is because museums now, if in the past they were viewed as these noble institutions that only rich people would have access, now museums are trying to reform their public image, and they're presenting this as a platform for the community. So the art in those museums should reflect the community they're placed in. And oftentimes, they're not that. So, first of all, why museums are doing that is because I think they believe that they should like protect the base of art history that goes on generation and generation. And second of all, and they don't want to bring too much change. They want to bring like a drop of change, which the community considers not enough. They can do a lot more. And second, reasons why the change is happening so slow is because there is a lack of research about female artists. Not a lot of art dealers bought their artworks. Not a lot of conservations were done to their artworks, so you can present it later in an exhibition. Me, for example, when I was researching which artists I will showcase in my podcast, if I saw that their Wikipedia page is 2 paragraphs, I cannot create an episode based on 2 paragraph of text. If there's not enough information, I would choose maybe more popular artists that at least I can have a lot more information to work with. And a great example of the work that the community does is Guerrilla Girls. I do encourage you to follow their work, because since 1984, since they brought together as a group of activists, they actually done a lot of great work, focusing on primarily on museums and the art world in the United States, but they expose a lot of racial discrimination, sexual discrimination, and they are bringing it to a bigger world platform. And they actually started with an international survey of painting dedicated to one exhibit that actually showcased and actually proved that in an exhibition of 169 artists, less than 10% were women. And even though there were women artists to be presented during this exhibit, the museum workers or the commission that admits whose work you expose and who work you don't just didn't care enough to include more women in it. So I think Guerrilla Girls are doing a great job. They have tons of posters, very easily recognized because they chose to be anonymous. That's why they wear this masks of gorilla, and the reason why they wear gorilla masks is because during one of their meetings, a staff member misspelled guerrilla with gorilla, and that's why they went with gorilla mask. But the the platform or the group is called Guerrilla Girls, not Gorilla Girls. And they actually take on names as like as famous artists like Frida Kahlo and Georgia O'Keeffe, and they do hide their identity because they think this is the way to keep the information accurate when they are presenting. And they started to not only pay attention of how many women are exposed during exhibits or in museums, but they also started to highlight the fact that there are not a lot of non-white artists that are exposed in museums or mainstream exhibition and publication. So their work keeps evolving, and it's very interesting, the work that they're doing. All right,
So
now it's story
before
time. Yes.
Nata, before going further to
Mhm.
attribute to the man, I wanted to ask you, us as just visitors of museums, can we somehow support it from our side? You know, the female in art. Can we somehow, just simple people, just ordinary students who are probably watching this Facebook Live,
Of
Is
course,
there something?
of course. I think a lot of the changes that are made right now at the institutional level in museums comes from the audience. So if you keep on writing to all museums have social media platforms. So if you manage to get to write a message to them saying, hey, we would like to see this, or we would like to see that, or please expose this, or please expose that, I think they always listen to their audience because this is who they're trying to cater to. And I think, yeah, people should be vocal about this. On the other hand, I would like to tell you that our Museum of Art is actually doing a pretty good job at having artworks by women. It's just most of them are from the Soviet times, but it really, this is the historical time. But our Museum of Art in Chisinau actually has a great number of women artists, and in the past and in the present, they've been doing an amazing thing of doing a retrospective of women artists. So at least like but once again, Chisinau is not the entire country. So that kind of thing. Or I encourage people whenever you see, I don't know, a list of people that are participating at the conference that talks about change and talks about human rights and talks about this. And if you see an all male panel, then feel free to do contact the organizer and demand and ask. Because if you're doing a roundtable with artists and you have no representation of your specific group, and not just your specific group, but if you, because if you care about diversity, it should not like be just about you. And if you see that it's not representative of our community is diverse, we are different genders, we are different sexualities, we are different religion, and I think diversity should lead to the change, because everybody brings something to the table that you may not be aware of. I have experiences that Sasha cannot relate to, and Sasha has experience that I cannot relate to. And in order for us to make that change and bring that change, Sasha should have the platform to share his experiences just as me. And together, we create a plan that both of us feel comfortable with. And that's, I think, it's what missing in the big art world. It's not that there should be enough places at the table for everybody. You should invite everybody. You don't have like, okay, we have only 5 slots and that's it. No, bring everybody in. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Can I continue? All right,
Yep.
now it's story time, my favorite. And just, I wanted to tell you that the examples or the stories of women artists that I chose to present today, there are just a few of them. It's a lot more. Just type in works by women attributed to men, and you're going to see lists and lists of things like this happening. But for the sake of time, I just collected some of the most interesting and the ones that I actually knew in the past about it while preparing for my podcast. All right, I wanted to ask, but it's okay if people do not reply fast enough. But do people recognize this artwork, or do people are familiar with this artwork?
Just in case, you can write your answers in the comment
Hmm.
section.
But Sasha,
Uh,
did you when I sent you the presentation, did it look familiar?
it was looking familiar just because one time I think it was where I've seen this kind of installation in one of
Hmm.
our museums, and
Hmm.
I read the. I was confused. I didn't
Hmm.
understood like what's that, and then I read the explanation. I'm not gonna say it right now because maybe someone will answer. Well,
Hmm.
Anastasia said yes, but it
Yes.
doesn't mean anything. Thank you,
Anastasia,
Anastasia,
give
for
us a
knowing.
name, give us an answer.
Give us names. Yeah, so I've seen this, and I think it wasn't the same installation, but it was
Mhm,
kind of the same installation.
mhm, mhm,
But yeah, I've seen it here, and after this, I made a research and I found who it was, why it was created, and the meaning
mhm.
behind that. But I think I don't know. We will receive some comments. Maybe
Yeah.
not. You just
Well, maybe not. because
Yeah.
I don't want this live to go. I mean, I can talk about this subject for hours because it's something I'm very passionate about. But we cannot go on and on with this Facebook Live session. So, this artwork, it's called Fountain, and a lot of people consider this as like one of the most important artworks of one of the most important influential art movement of the 20th century, which is conceptual art. And you're right, conceptual art comes with this thing that the idea behind the artwork is a lot more important than the product itself. Or you know how you can recognize this when you go through a museum exhibit and people go like, "Oh, my kid could have done this," or
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
there's nothing special about it because it's just a ready-made object. That's how they call them, because it's an object that they made it into art. They didn't need to change it. They didn't need to work. They didn't need to create it. They
They've
it's
just seen
just there.
art in the
It's just
object.
an object. So, and a lot of people and a lot of art historians consider that this was actually the start of conceptual art and how it was born. And I would encourage people to pay attention to the signature art mutt on this, and it says 1917 on the side. So actually, the story goes like this. We will start with Marcel Duchamp, who was a brilliant inventor of the ready-made things that I told about, stuff that it's there, and they declare it art. They didn't have to like really create it. So he submitted this fountain, which is an urinal, signed R. Mutt, to the American Society of Independent Artists. Obviously, the piece was rejected, and Duchamp sort of resigned from it. But Alfred Stieglitz, which was a famous photographer, he took a picture, and actually the artwork as we see it now, it's not the original one, because the original one just disappeared in the mix of the chaos and scandal and everything. It's so surprising that in art history things like this would be considered scandalous and like a whole thing about it that people made. So it's
That was
actually
the point. That was the
yes.
point, I think.
So it's actually not the original. It disappeared. This is a replica of what it was sent at the beginning, just for people to be aware. So obviously, but it doesn't matter because it created the buzz. It created, as I said, a sort of like beginning of conceptual art, and a lot of artists at the time turned to conceptualizing and ideas rather than hard work. Because I know a lot of people still consider that if you have a painting that is like half the wall and an artist really exhibited some talents and techniques, then that is art. And a urinal can never be compared to that. But I think contemporary art proved it so many times that it's the idea behind the concept and not so much about how much hard work was put by the artist. And to like open the quotations, a lot of this big famous artists right now that are considered and selling their art for millions, they usually have studios. They usually hire a lot of help that do the dirty work, the manual labor. So is it really and they just put their stamp of a famous last name. So is it really created by the artist or not? But this fountain, this urinal, was actually voted in 2004 as one of the most influential modern artwork of all time. And I think here I'll make another comment on the way you actually posted the title of the event. If you can pull up the is equal and stuff. So here I will tell you from my experience as a journalist a gazillion years ago. An art company from Romania was doing an event that was happening simultaneously in Chisinau and Bucharest. And as I was looking, they were selling the artworks, and as I was looking at them, I saw a few Mikhail Grecu artworks, which he's a Moldovan artist, and I saw that the prices were not in thousands of euros like the ones that were signed by Romanian artists. And I actually asked the director, why is it like this? Because when you look at them visually, they're from the same family, they have the same style, the same technique, the same idea of very rustic, very rural subjects. And he said it's just a marketing thing. When you have a big name, they sell a lot and everybody knows it, so you can pump the price up. But if you have a you know, unknown artist or modestly known in the art world, then you cannot put like thousands of euros behind it because people still don't know it. So it is about this urinal, Marcel Duchamp, submission of this thing was influential because it created the buzz, because it created the scandal, because it made a name for itself. So I think a lot of these artworks, visually, they may be the same, man, women, or other genders, because there are a lot more genders than just the binary vision. But who's the marketing? Who do we know more? Who was in more scandals? Who was more in the press? Who was more in movies and Hollywood and stuff like that? And that's how they make the difference, actually. All right. But the story doesn't end here with the fountain, because we have another woman artist, that was also very controversial and very famous for her presence in the art world in New York. She was Baroness Elsa, and she would wear spoons for earrings, and she would dress very, crazy and trying to attract attention. And she was actually from Germany and in New York. So people really knew her for being very extravagant, over the top, dramatic presence and stuff like that. So, and actually, there are people who studied her and studied her biography, and they actually found the letter that Marcel Duchamp wrote to his sister Suzanne. And in that letter, he says, one of my female friends who had adopted the masculine pseudonym Richard Mott sent in a personal urinal as a sculpture. And also later on, when Baroness Elsa was calling Marcel Duchamp out, and said that he stole her idea and her artwork, he actually came out and said that he purchased this urinal from a company called G.L. Mott Iron Works. But the time that the urinal was submitted, they did not create this particular urinal. So the story cannot really be true that he bought it from that company. Um, Also, there is a lot of things that they relate to the R mud signature on that urinal, and the fact that R mud sounds like the word poverty in German, and when you reverse it, it reads Mutter, which is mother also. And it has a very many connections to the death of her mother, of Baroness mother, and the fact that she died of urinary cancer. And actually, that's what the uterine character of the upside down urinal was long been noted. So, and actually, they compared the original signature on that urinal with her handwriting, and it actually showed that it matches a lot. So, in all that to say that one of the artworks that were so crucial for the 20th century, one of the most important, everybody is praising it, blah, blah, blah. It was actually coming from a woman that, sent her friend at that time, and he just took it and submitted it himself. Um, Another story that I can, plead the case in this point of our presentation is one of the Dutch artists, Judith Leister. His stories are actually amazing because a lot of her artworks. Uh, I have a very passionate
Art lover.
art lover here that
Bring him, bring him on.
it's her. It's Lisa that
It's
is.
her. Ah, it's
It's
Lisa.
her.
Okay.
Yes, yes, yes. My bad. All
Bring
right.
Lisa in. She's also a piece of art.
I know, but I prefer to be
Okay,
focused
sure.
during this
Sure.
presentation. So my bad. So Judith Leister, which is a Dutch artist, there are actually a lot of discoveries you know, um, that are right now that figured out that her signature was actually just painted over. Like she would have her signature on her painting, and the art dealers would just paint it over and sign over it, and they were promoted as Franz Hals. So a male name painted over her name. And it's all about as I said, it's all about the money, it's all about the cash, because it will be much easier to sell a Franz Hall's artwork than sell a Judith Leister artwork, and that's such a shame. Um, Also, another thing is that when they started to analyze, and a lot of this discovery come after they X-ray the artwork, because you can see if something was painted over, if something was covered, if there is like a double layer of canvas. That the way they noted this is because, in addition to her name, Judith Leister, that she would leave on her paintings, she would paint a northern star, like a star. And that's how they actually found that her signature was painted, is by that star, because it was very much her that was putting those stars in addition to her actual signature and name. And maybe people found out because Artemisia Gentileschi in the recent years started to be this great phenomena, and she has solo exhibitions in the National Gallery in London and Tate Modern and da 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 da. So a lot of them are actually posting her artworks. And Artemisia was born in a family of artists. Her father was an artist, her brothers were artists. And from my experience of creating the podcast episodes about women artists, and when I read about them, uh, okay, I'm not an art historian by diploma, but let's just say a good 80% of these women were able to make it in the art world just slightly a bit. It's because of fathers that were artists. When you had a father that was an artist as well, you would have just the door for you was slightly open, and they will very often support their daughters in the art endeavors and stuff like that. So it definitely helped to have a parent in the art world. And I would add here, you had to have the money. If the family was noble and a little bit rich, the door would open as well. And that's to answer the question, for example, why there are no, I don't know, non-white artists that are present in museums and stuff. Besides the gender, we have to take into consideration race. We have to take into consideration money and social status that often help these women a little bit more than men. So Artemisia Gentileschi is considered one of greatest female artists of Baroque times. She was a very big fan of Caravaggio, and Caravaggio actually visited the Gentileschi family. Well, Artemisia was like 10 when she met with Caravaggio. So, but they still say she, out of everybody, really took a lot of inspiration from him, and, one of the greatest Italian masters. But also for centuries, canvases that were done by Artemisia were actually signed, by her father. So it was like they were taking, or art historians would attribute the artworks that she created to her father, because father daughter things that
Marketing. This is marketing.
exactly.
Let's get back to this. This is marketing.
Marketing, and actually it's pure sexism, because you would think that an artwork will not be valued enough if it had her name on it rather than her father. And these stories are, as I said, these stories are endless. If you start diving in this whole thing, it seems like they never stop. And I think the reason they don't make it to our history books, it's because of people. As I said, you need to be committed to the cause. If you really want to bring the light for women artists and other marginalized group, you need to be committed to that cause. And oftentimes this commitment is not there. People don't want to shake the boat. People want to go by rules that were established centuries ago, and they, want to just
And
follow the lead. They don't want to bring that change. And now my
I
favorite part.
I know. But also, before you will
Yeah.
go to the favorite
Mhm.
part, I just want to add to this historical slash marketing part. Is I was listening to a lection on some website. I don't remember the name,
Mhm.
but it was about the showing gender in the art. So usually, in the past, they were showing female in the pictures as or victims or
Mhm.
someone who is calling for you, basically calling for the viewer, because the viewer usually, as you said in the beginning, were rich people. Who were rich people? Men.
Man.
So usually a woman were shown as just someone that needs help. So even from this side, it's again, even though they were showing women basically, but they were
Yeah.
showing it in the light that they wanted to show. So yeah.
Um, what you are referring to is actually called male gaze. So the women that we see in the artwork created by men are essentially created for male gaze. They were created so rich men can look at them. That's why they're just pretty objects. That's why they're almost inactive. That's why they're just like there to be pretty. And one of the, common memes in the art world is, um, oftentimes there's a lot of nudity related to women that are shown on canvases or shown in sculptures. And the joke is like, sure, like you cannot just sit in a garden and enjoy the flowers if you don't have parts of your body out and naked, because that's what we usually go. We go to the gardens half naked and sit there and smell a rose.
Yeah,
You
it makes
know,
sense. It makes
yes,
sense.
sure. So, yes, a lot of artworks were created for men to look at it, and they absolutely and almost give no power to the subject, and they don't give the power to the viewer. And I encourage the viewers to go back and look at Artemisia Gentileschi and how she actually, because there are a lot of articles that compare one of her artworks to Caravaggio's artworks, and they say that it's like decapitating of some figure. So in the whole canvas is a woman decapitating a man. And they often say that in the version that Artemisia Gentileschi paint, you can feel the range, you can feel the anger, you can feel the passion, because a woman was doing it, and their bodies are not sexualized, and their bodies are not, half naked and very soft and somehow. So yeah, I would say it's very different in the subjects that a woman is choosing for her artworks and what a man chooses to show in her artwork. But at the same time, I would like the viewers to consider, because women didn't have access to education, so um, they couldn't just go to art school. or even when the door of art schools opened for women, they would not have access to models. So when we see that we have women that painted flowers and animals, and we think, watercolors, it's not, it's a feminine thing, it's a woman thing. It's because they didn't have access to anything else besides sitting at home and drawing flowers. So, whenever we look at the subject, the more access women had to resources, to education, then they bring a huge variety in the art subject that they were choosing. All right, so let's go to Just Amuse. Another reasons why women were kept away from history books, or their personal life or their personal status and personal relation to a famous male artist is what people chose to highlight, is what media chose to focus on, rather the fact that they were also artists on their own with their own accomplishments. And I also would like to ask the viewers, let's see if people can guess the vibe of what did Dora Maar and Francois Guillot have in common. Dora Maar was also a famous photographer. Francois Guillot was later an author and also an artist. And let's see if people can guess what these women had in common.
We need to give them some moment because
Hmm. Sure.
it has a delay. So I don't know. For me, I cannot tell. I cannot tell, and yeah, we will change this definitely after this. But since you talked about being abused, so
Hmm.
probably they were inspiring someone, but actually they were maybe the artists themselves. I don't know. It's just in my mind. Is just how maybe how
Yes.
we are talking about this, but we will find
So,
out very soon.
so they were muses to a very powerful man in the art world, which is Pablo Picasso. Um, Very well known, very well established. I think a lot of people, and if you read the articles about investing money, they say it's better to invest in a Picasso because the prices for artworks can only go up, and their value, monetary value, can only grow through years. So, what these two women have in common, Dora and Francois, is actually their relationship with the abuser that Pablo Picasso was. Pablo Picasso is not notorious for being nice to his partners. And for example, Dora was a photographer, and she was a very innovative surrealist artist. And for people to be more aware, surrealism movement is that the weird imagery, very dreamy. A lot of surrealist artists would draw their inspiration from the dreams that they were having. So when they met, Picasso was almost twice her age. By the way, there this is a pattern of abusive behavior in his relationship to women, because he always choose very young women, women that I mean, we can talk about the power dynamics. When you are very young, when you're 19 and you meet this famous world known artists, obviously you will be drawn to it, you'll be drawn to their world, but it does not make it okay for those in power and much older to abuse this younger curiosity. So she also actually worked with him in his iconic artwork called Guernica. It's about World War. So it's about war in general. And she was also posing for a lot of his artwork as a model. And one of the most famous is the Weeping Women. And for the viewers to know, almost, I don't know, I read a lot of stories of the relationship between artists and their models. None of them were very nice to models either, because it was not okay to model for some man naked in nudity. they would often refer to sex workers for this. They wouldn't pay the sex workers, and they would treat them very badly. So either way, they were not very nice to their muses. They were not very nice to their models. And actually, Picasso disapproved of Dora's photography. He called it lesser art. Photography, a woman doing her thing. It's not art, it's not that important. And he actually encouraged her to pursue Cubism, in which he was already established as a name. And obviously, she didn't really do well as a Cubist artist overall. But she, obviously, unfortunately, after separating from Pablo Picasso, with years and years of physical and emotional abuse, she endured a nervous breakdown and actually went through electroshock therapy before actually, coming completely reclusive until the end of her days. So her life ends very tragically because of the emotional abuse that she supported from Picasso. Francois had a better happy ending, I would say. But when they met, she was Picasso was 3 times her age. So we can see that he also, as a very abusive person like that, to mess up with young people that are very vulnerable. And if you will look for his Picasso's La Femme Fleur, that's the woman you actually see in that artwork. You see Francois in that creation, and she actually wrote a book, Life with Picasso, during Picasso's lifetime and during her lifetime. But obviously, it was bashed and ridiculed. Nobody believed her. And it actually happened that because they had 2 kids together, he cut the relationship with the kids and cut them from giving them, money, financial support, and stuff like that. But it's amazing because her watercolors, for example, or ceramics that she worked on, actually kind of brought her up after the failure with Pablo Picasso. And she outlived him. And she outlived his attempts to destroy her career, because in pretty much time, pretty much he was using these women as doormats for his ego and his abusive behaviors. And once again, as I said, this was very controversial and a very heated debate on my social media, because people were like, so what should we do now? Should we like burn Picasso's artworks? And I'm like, nobody is asking to burn Picasso's artwork. People are asking you to be aware who you admire and who you put on a pedestal. Because if this was, let's just say, a regular doctor or a regular teacher or a regular bus driver that was so abusive to his partners, we'd be like, he needs to be in jail, he needs to go on trial, he needs to respond for his abusive behavior. But because this is a famous artist, then we kind of like, he's an artist, we can forgive him. This is how they all are. And that's not very acceptive behavior, and we should not accept that. And I will end my long series of stories with probably one of the most famous muses that art history has known. That's Camille Claude. And she was a sculptor and she was an artist in her own rights. And she started a relationship with another French sculptor, very famous, Auguste Rodin. And while they were in a relationship, they were very supportive of her artwork, and she would get shows, and she would get, once their relationship ended, it was very hard for her to find funding for her artworks in general. And she actually destroyed much of her work herself. She accused him of stealing her ideas, and she was even placed in a mental asylum for the last 30 years in a mental asylum back in the days. This is not not that the modern asylums sound like a nice place to be. but for the last 3 years she spent in the mental asylum because of how emotionally exhausted Camille was. Because you got to understand, this powerful man, they were not just letting this women go. They would be like, don't give her, a grant. We know how these relationships work. It's a very close community. People know each other. And if somebody says, oh, that's my crazy ex, don't pay her attention, don't do this, don't do that. This is how everything was back then, and this is how it still is today. And by the way, also another thing, when she met Auguste Rodin, she was 19 and he was 42. So you can see this artist really liked to be abusive for all their lifetime. And actually, even though only 90 pieces of Camille's work remain, um, whenever she is brought up in artwork, in art books, or people say Camille Claude, his muse, or Auguste Rodin's muse, Camille Claude. So her relationship with Rodin is always placed before people talk about her as an artist or as a sculptor. And that sort of diminishes her status, diminishes her work, diminishes her efforts that she's done through her lifetime. So, in the end, let me ask you again, dear viewers, why have there been no great women artists? And I think, and I hope, together we can learn that the reason why there been no great women artists is not because there were no women artists, or it's not because they were not doing great work. It's because there is a system that consistently keeps them, at the end of the line of the lineup, shadows, in the shadows, and doesn't want to acknowledge the wrongs that happen in their lifetime.
And I also noticed that you said that this thing is happening, still happening.
Yeah.
This to promote even a female artist, you need to connect her to a powerful male name, a male artist name. So I'm thinking about maybe we can, I don't know, maybe you can educate us about some artist, female artist, modern one. I mean, they're
Hmm.
still alive that we can still help with our attention and educate ourselves with
Hmm.
studying them. Maybe there are artists, maybe even Moldovan artists, I don't know, that are doing a great thing.
Yeah. What I think we need to pay attention, and this is another, coming back to another question that you asked me, how we can support this women artists and stuff. Well, obviously, okay, so let's say this. Let's say if you have no money, you are a young person, you're just starting in life, obviously, you don't have money to buy artworks. One thing, you can support them on social media. You can, because it doesn't cost anything to like and share, and obviously social media plays a very crucial role in whose name we know and whose name we pay attention to. And this is how we find out about different exhibits and showcases and stuff like that. So support them on social media, go to their shows, because that's very important to show support, not just in virtual life, but on site as well. But if you do have money and you love art, why not, buy their artwork? Because that's a new wave in art world, is women collectors who collect art by women, by other women, or those coming from, example, from non-white artists or non-Western artists. And when you buy certain works, let's just say Sasha, if I'm buying from you and then another friend is buying from you, there is a buzz, right? Everybody's buying from Sasha, so Sasha may. And I'm gonna tell you, not all this art dealers, it's not that they're all art lovers or they can appreciate
They're
art.
businessmen. Yeah.
They appreciate money. So if everybody's investing in Sasha, that means Sasha has something to offer. So I'll go and buy from Sasha as well. So that's how you create this whole thing. Is like, if you can afford to buy, then you can buy, and you can support. Um So one of in one of my last season of podcasting, because right now I'm more about creating content on social media. I fairly dropped creating podcast episodes because it's very emotionally and physically draining, so I put sort of a stop to it. But in my last season, I actually managed to do several interviews with local women artists. And for example, the ones I really love is Vasilutsa Vasilake. Go and check her out. Vasilutsa's artworks are amazing. She reminds me a lot about Maria Primachenko's artwork, which was a Ukrainian artist. It's all fairy tales. Vasilutsa draws a lot of inspiration from nature and flowers, but the way she does it is very whimsical. It's very fairy tale like. So Vasilutsa Vasilake. Another one is Christina Golovacic. She does a lot more abstract artwork. She has a very good sense of colors and the way she combines things. And she is not in she's not in Chisinau, but as I said, now you can go and support people from all over the world through social media. They don't have to be present in Moldova physically. Another one that I really enjoyed was Yeva Mokano, but Yeva, I met her these days during an event, and she said she is not that much into creative anymore, but she is into educating. So she probably is going to become like an art teacher or something because she likes that connection. For example, you can go to Nicoleta Vaccaro, and I think America House Chisinau has done interview with Nicoleta, and it was about her artwork because she does this string art with nails and string. It's the technique level. It's beyond. You gotta be very patient to be able to create all of that stuff. Another one,
Definitely.
yeah, another one, and that's if you, for example, like more not virtual,
Digital
how
art.
digital art. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And two of them I can name is Anna Cosmos and Natasha Mccree. Their illustrations and their artworks are very nice. Natasha even does comics on special platforms, and I think she's creating very interesting her own stories with her own characters. And yeah, once again, if you don't have the money to support, then just go and support them, virtually. But if you do, then consider orienting your attention to other groups of people.
I think it would also be nice if we will attach this after this session in the comment section below. I will
Yeah,
attach all of the artists' name that you just named,
for
and
sure.
people will be able to just check them out and
Hmm.
support local art, support female art, and just maybe it will be like art lovers starter pack. They will start with this, and then they will continue research, and they will find someone they will prefer. So I think it will be very nice, and I think our audience and me, we all
Yeah.
will be very grateful for you if you will share the names in the comment section.
And
I will.
for example, I would, it's very nice. I believe personally, because when I started this project, I only knew, Frida Kahlo and Georgia O'Keeffe, two of the most famous women artists. But when you start digging, you see a whole different art world, and you see that there are a lot more names. And why is nobody talking about them? And another phenomenon that I saw is actually see the it's a very great feeling to see the evolution of this artist. Because, for example, I know Christina Golovacic for a long time, right? And I see the evolution in her art. And when she gets awards, or where she get, it's a very nice feeling. Or, for example, in photography, we have a lot of great photography. My friend Anastasia Efimenko is also like, it's very interesting to see her journey as an artist. And I think for you as a viewer and the one that appreciates art, it's very nice to see how they started and where they're going, and you almost feel like a part of their journey. That's for people who want to support them online. You feel like you like almost contributed to this, like you were with her from the very beginning, and that's a very nice feeling.
I totally agree, and we will definitely go through this, make our own research, and I just feel like I discovered something new when I discover a new artist. So
Hmm.
right now, I will pay more attention to our local artists. So thank you for
Yep.
that as well, and I thank you for your time and great presentation.
Thank you so much, Sasha. I hope everybody enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you, audience, that were able to join us today. If not, you are still can leave your question in the comment section below, just in case you haven't managed it to do right now, and we will get back to you with answers, with recommendations. Let's talk in the comment section. Maybe you can share your favorite female artists, your opinion. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree with us.
Hmm.
Just share your opinions in the comments. We would be very grateful to see them and read them. So thank you all, and I wish you all a great evening and basically peaceful one as well. Bye bye.
Absolutely. Bye bye.